Hey, this is John. I have a question for you. Do you know how many ways you can repurpose your event content?
That's a good question, John. I think we're going to talk about that in this episode.
Awesome. Welcome to RizPod episode 12. I am Marissa Kelly's co-host, John Harris. And
Oh my
Marissa,
God, you are an integral part, and I wouldn't do this without you. So thank you for being here. We were talking about how to name this episode because it's really just all about content. But in order to talk about it and be about it, we want to get into why we should talk about the content that you can get from a virtual event. So, first, purpose and type.
so yeah, breaking it down, like how do we want to use this stuff? Like what are we going to use it for? Number one
Mm-hmm.
thing I want to use it for sometimes is just SEO, right?
Yes,
How do I turn my event into SEO?
I think a lot of people miss the mark when they're being bombarded by consistent messages on social, whether they're on the new Threads app or they're, on Instagram, constantly seeing like fun videos, and they're not thinking about the long-term purpose, which is SEO. So you can
Right.
generate tons of different content, but the purpose of you generating that is to make sure that you have some search engine optimization. So what are the ways that we can help the SEO from a virtual event?
Right. Well, one would be blog content, right? So
Most simple
setting
way.
yourself up for crawlers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just for search. Um, and then what do you think? And so these days you don't even have to write that blog content,
Yes.
essentially, right?
Yeah, and people like me who also dabble in all of this all the time have developed a different process of getting your virtual event into some sort of blog. But most people will not think of that as something that is the basis of the content to produce once you're done with your event. I think it's an old school way. Blog content. Oh, I gotta write a blog about this event now. Well, you don't have to. You can utilize a tool, which we'll go over in the second part of the podcast. But yeah, blog content is the most simple way to recap your conversation, and whether you have AI or a human editing that blog, you can definitely put it on your website, or there's social ways to do that as well.
Right. Yeah. Next way to increase your SEO is obviously backlinks. Those are still a thing. So getting as
Yes.
many links to your site as possible. So that could just be from posting on social and linking to it, or by getting other people to be maybe they're guest blogging about
Mhm.
maybe you're guest blogging on their blog about your event, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Blogging about blogging, blogging. No, I think also there's like a home base. Like, let's say you've had your event, you've had all these speakers, or you have like multiple participants. Now, someone wants to share that because they were present for that virtual event. Now they want to share it to their audience. They want to keep generating buzz about the event. Some type of home base for it, whether that's its own website or it's a blog from the main event sponsor or something like that. There's different ways to where that blog can live.
right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then another way to increase SEO in general is increasing your site traffic. And one way you
Mm-hmm.
can do that is for if you're hosting replays, try to host your replays like only on your site instead of having them maybe on video on like YouTube and on Vimeo and a ton of other places. Just have
Right.
it exclusively on your site. So if people want to show up and watch, they show up and they're there, and then they're there for a long time,
Right.
right? Which makes Google think that your website is better because it is,
Yes,
right?
it is. Yeah. Yeah, I think from most people, they're like, well, it's on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube. But in YouTube, you can't have all the extra stuff like contact page, a donate page if it's a nonprofit event, sign up for next year's event, sign up for next quarter's event. There's a lot of different ways that you can't really. You could put those links in your description in the YouTube, but you can't do that very effectively, because someone might just click on another video on YouTube and then
Yeah.
you've
Then they're
lost your
gone.
viewer.
Yeah.
Gone. Bye. Bye-bye.
Next thing you could be, I think, and one of the biggest things to use it for is awareness, right?
Yeah.
Just like regular content that you're kind of putting out in little tiny morsels over time, couple posts a week, for example, or bigger things. So like that'd be social media posts, right? Or bigger things like turning that into podcast content. I know a lot of podcasts that have like regular podcast formats. But then they also, when they do events a couple times a year, they also kind of turn those into like special episodes.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to reduce the overwhelm when someone talks about starting a podcast, because it is very much a big lift. Sometimes when you're creating something new, you have to figure out the process, how we're going to repurpose it. But like, if you're really thinking about how this event aligns with everything related to your business or your mission or vision, like you can put a short podcast out that lives on your website and doesn't, and actually, I mean, I don't know about you, but like other people learn by either listening or watching things. So you kind of have to think about those people. Like, you're not just putting a video out and hope that everyone watches it. Like, not everyone has that time span to do it. So having an audio version of your event would also help. And it doesn't have to be the whole thing. Maybe have someone edit it where it has like the highlights that like would be beneficial to your audience.
Right. And then other thing would be newsletter content, which can basically be essentially repurposed blog content, right?
Yes.
In the beginning.
Just thinking about that, it can be a little overwhelming. I mean, like, we just named off so many different ways to repurpose, but don't worry, because we're going to talk about the tools that you can actually utilize and get all this content. But yeah, newsletter, it's the old school way. Again, having you
still
have
one of the most effective.
Yes, because you have if you're generating people to sign up for your newsletter, whether they come to your website on a whim or, you know, they hear about some project you're working on, you're always going to be able to have their email address, and you can publicize your event after the fact. You can publicize your next year's event. People will, I know I've gotten FOMO from seeing an event on a newsletter, and I realize I can't make it because, you know, well, they put it out like two days before it's supposed to happen. Well, that doesn't always work with everyone's schedule, but, you know, it's good to have at least put it in your newsletter, because you never know who's going to see that.
Right. Especially if you're always starving for content, is a good source, right?
For sure.
Another one, earned media content. So like, if you can use your event as something to attract just articles from different people, definitely a way that you can repurpose some of that content if you have that available for them. If you have transcripts and more available for them, then you're making that reporter's job easier. Right. If you can send them all the assets, it's a lot easier for them to actually get that moving, and more likely that you're going to get that article than if you just kind of dial them up and say, can you write an article on me? Right.
Right. Exactly. You got to give people the tools to make it easier for them, because they're going to move on to the next person if it takes too much work.
Right.
Yeah, I would say that that's a good let's say you don't have a business purpose. You're on a podcast or you're part of a virtual event, but it doesn't necessarily fit your existing business model. You can still generate speaking engagements, or like utilizing it as like your personal brand portfolio, you know, adding that to your list of appearances would help. You know, also someone looking you up or needing like a bio or some references to your work, they can go and look at a landing page or a website.
Yeah, that's a good one. I hadn't thought of. I'd only thought of this from like the business perspective, but as just like an individual speaker, that actually makes a ton of sense.
I just recently hosted a panel, and I had asked for the bios from the speakers because, you know, I could Google them, but, you know, sometimes people don't update them. And this woman had she's, of course, she had a landing page with her short bio, her long bio, some links to like previous things, and also her affiliate like links and stuff like that. So it was beneficial, one, for her to like, that's her landing page when she talks about her call to action, but also good for someone like me who's organizing an event and getting information together. So
Right.
really beneficial for that.
Yeah. Other ways like to repurpose other purposes for your repurposing. Just getting people to actually take action.
What did you just say? Other purposes for your purpose to repurpose. Oh, okay.
Getting people to actually take action, right? So this could be getting
Yes.
email signups for your newsletter, getting people to just fill in their email to watch on-demand content. You could turn your entire event and the takeaways from it into a lead magnet and have that be that something that gathers emails for you, right?
Yeah, I've seen both sides where they just, have the call to action, like go to my website, sign up for my newsletter. But I think there's also some benefit to having a very specific lead magnet that could be beneficial based on that event, whether it's a quarterly event or, some type of virtual gala that happens once a year. They're always going to have, I think you're going to have to start improvising ways to like get people to sign up, because not everyone's going to do that. So like if you said like ways our money gets donated to this community or whatever, I think that would be a good idea. I don't know. I'm just generating ideas here, content ideas.
Finally, paid on demand. I know a lot of online events that it'll be a free broadcast, but if people want to watch later, that's paid.
Yes.
And so that is obviously a great way. It's a direct business, right? Final segment on purposes for promoting the next event.
Yeah.
Right? What better way to promote your next event than use your event?
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of things that comes when I'm planning events, people are constantly talking about photo and video. But every time we reach out to these vendors who are going to provide that, there's always a deliverable that's required, which is a highlight reel, which you can either create that internally or you can have the, the vendor do that. But you can also create it with the tools, which we're going to talk about, to generate and promote your next event. Whether you're selling tickets or not, you're reusing that content to generate buzz and excitement for the next one. Even if you don't know if that's going to happen, because sometimes it can't. COVID, and we could have another pandemic. I don't think we're going to have that, but you can also pitch another point that you can also pitch speakers. This is the event. This is how the style is. Here's an example of what we've done before. Check this out. Do you know anyone that, whether it's you, can you speak at this event, or do you know anyone that might fit this model or something like that? It's definitely a way to promote the next event to all the people that are connected to you.
Yeah, nice. I think is that our million ways? Now that we've completely overwhelmed people, should we shift into like how they actually get this done?
Yeah, well, also one other thing is the selling sponsors, to make sure that people are, you gotta host your event, and you gotta pitch it to people who want to be part of it. And if you don't have content from the last year, or it's a new event, it's hard to pitch that. But definitely make sure you use it for the next one, the following year. So yeah, tools, my favorite topic. Repurposing tools. I'm going to talk about my top three tools right now that
what's your favorite?
Oh my gosh. You asked that in our little outline, and I was like, I don't think I can pick one. Yeah, I don't know. They all have different purposes. What I'm really, really loving right now, and I think the reason why I love it, is Cast Magic. Cast Magic is you upload an audio file of your event. In this case, we upload a few video podcasts. They're weekly shows or whatever, and it generates many different styles of content based on the value that's provided in the AI. Different. It's reading the whole transcript and then it's determining using AI what is the best content for LinkedIn? What's the best content for a title for your YouTube? What is a newsletter? Like how would you write your newsletter and how would you construct it? It gives you also breakdowns of different highlights in the audio. So it has timestamps. It also has alternative text to use for your reels. And we're saying reels now, but it could be anything really, short form videos, not specifically reels. But yeah, I think that is my favorite one, because if you're already conceptualizing a podcast with the expert, right? You're an expert in your field and you're talking and you're recording, and you don't have a way to then you're done recording and now you want to repurpose it and post it on whatever platform that you decide, whether it's your website or social media or whatever, newsletter. Now you have to go and write. You just talked for 2 hours and now you have to go write stuff. And I think I don't love writing. I never really have. I like short.
Talking.
Of course. I love talking, but I think in my head, I have an outline of what I would like to talk about. I know the main points. It's the filler that I don't always have.
Totally.
And I have to get in, managing different clientele. Like I have to get in that brain of like that voice and how I'm going to talk. And so sometimes, especially when it comes to my own content, it becomes an afterthought, because I'm just like, well, I just recorded this podcast. Now I got to do something with it. And I just leave it on my plate to do later on.
Right.
But yeah.
So with Cast Magic, we record, we upload the audio file into it. It transcribes it. It finds the best parts, and then does it also turn that into video?
No.
Or is it, okay.
No.
So it doesn't. So it's just kind of taking the audio into text and then doing amazing things with the text.
Yes.
Is that kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is pretty sweet, because that writing time is like the hardest time afterwards, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
As a collaborative project here, we're building the run of show or the outline, and it's like little snippets because we're the experts, right? But like we're not writing a blog that makes sense with all the filler, like I said. So it's good to have that stuff to kind of trigger your creativity and use it yourself or utilize a team, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Nice. Next tool.
My next favorite one is Momento. They just went live on Product Hunt, so they're new. I'm upvoting them. It's momento.fm. Viral shorts in seconds. So basically you upload your video and it creates, similar to like the AI tool with Cast Magic, it'll pull out important parts of your video. So you want to upload the full video, not just your short form video that you created or edited. And it'll give you different highlights that you could use. And you can also change the template. So like you change the font, you can change the way it looks. Right now we have 2 people on screen. So when we upload it, it shows both of us. But if you're doing a solo thing, you can definitely, more framed with just one person in it. So I love it. It's a new app. I actually talked to the founder a couple weeks ago on the phone, which is not unusual because I've done it before with new apps, but it's kind of nice to get that firsthand conversation with them, and they can actually do a little bit of customer research at the same time with me. So,
and so is that everything that we're using right now in terms of, is that like a full list of what we're using?
Yeah, those are top 3 tools or top 2 tools, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, that covers all of our text and our transcription for the blogs and posts, and then Momento does the reels.
Yeah.
Is that like, so is that all encompassing for our post production essentially for like?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and human time,
Yeah.
which
Humans.
can vary. We do have humans managing. Yeah. So I think Memento is like 75 a month, and then Cast Magic is about 100 a month. But depending on how often you use it, varies from cost and cost splitting. But yeah, I think from a business standpoint, it's pretty affordable if you're
a ton of content.
Yeah, and I think the other tool that I want to mention, and this is mainly for those people who are creating consistent educational based content, whether it's webinars or like a series of educational stuff, I would use some type of teaching platform. Teachable or Uscreen, you can always upload your content to that. Doesn't do all the fancy magic stuff, but there's a home base for all your content, and you can decide whether or not you want to make it paid, which I think is a good thing depending on your purpose and what you intend to do with your content after it's live.
Makes sense. And then should we talk about newsletter tools as well? I think that's kind of how we deliver a good chunk of it, right? So
yes. What's your favorite, John?
I have barely touched newsletter tools, honestly. So I don't think me talking about my favorite would be kind of useless.
Okay, so there's a lot of new ones that are coming out from what I see, like on these emails that I get from new apps and stuff. And so I'm curious to know if they're using the traditional, ones that have been used for years through digital marketing, which is like MailChimp and Constant Contact, or they're utilizing a new tool that basically generates an email newsletter draft from your AI video, which would be amazing. Now let's see if that's a product, because I'm going to Google that after the fact, because there's a product idea.
It will be next week, right?
But my favorite, just because I have a good relationship with them, is Aweber, and you can create landing pages and input your newsletter content into there and track it the way you need to.
Got it. Yeah, it's not an exhaustive list, not an exhausting list of tools. While it is exhaustive of what we do, which is, I think we get, for the time we record and the time we spend, we get a ton of content out of this. One of the reasons I love it. It sounds like it's all kind of wrapped up in a couple tools and a couple hardworking humans in the background.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, that, speaking of humans, is the process part. So you got all these tools. Now you figure out like, what is next? How do you generate that? And we talked about this either earlier or like when we were offline, is one of the goals that when we started working with the people that are helping us with our content was to make sure that it got out, because we were kind of like stuck in that we had 8 episodes or 9 episodes in the bank, but we weren't promoting it. We were kind of like generating buzz here and there. And we did it because we were over planning, right? There was that thing of like, well, how do you actually get this out? And so I just basically challenged the people working with me to like come up with a process that works for them, because I don't want to say post it at 7 a.m. when I'm active if they can't do that, so schedule it if that's when it's done. So developing that process is really also empowering the people you work with to make a process that works for them, that can work for other people if they were not going to work with us anymore. So that I think is one of the main tips if you are a solopreneur or a small business owner with a small team, just figure out who's going to manage it and then have a process that works for them and align it with your goals.
Then you're probably just going to not post enough and really want to be posting, because when you start posting, even if it's just stuff that you've spent a little bit of time thinking about what could be the right strategy, then you're going to learn, you're going to have some analytics, you're going to be able to know kind of like, okay, this is working, that's not working. And then you can start doing the next step, right?
Yeah. I think, you hit the nail on the head with that one. It's like not there's not like a guidebook on like how to do this or like how quickly to do it. So yeah, it's a good note. Another question to ask when it comes to processes is how to know what to share and how to choose highlights. Do you depend on AI in that sense?
I think so. That's a tough one. I really don't know how I would do it without a little bit of professional support and some AI. Could find all the times that I make you laugh and turn your microphone off. Maybe those are the best parts.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one because it really just depends on, well, your business structure. If we're using an example of us, we don't know what to choose because we're hoping that it hits the right audience based on our existing goals, but we don't know what to choose because we don't know enough people have seen it yet. There's not enough data. So you just kind of have to keep rolling.
I guess that's one difference from our show. We're talking about what to do with events here on this show. We're using our show right now as the guideline, which kind of doesn't actually make that much sense. What would make more sense is like if you're hosting the event, you're at the event, you're going to kind of know what those highlight moments are. When was there when was there the most applause, the most laughter?
Right.
Those are going to be, just make mental note, or is there somewhere on paper that those are going to be your highlight reels, and then just point those out to whoever is making your highlight reels as the moments, right?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because I think when we talk about like a virtual event specifically, you need to have people that are part of the event host or the sponsor that's presenting the virtual event in the room, like in the virtual room, making notes or like guiding certain things, like, oh, can you repeat that resource that was mentioned or something like that? Because we want to make sure that it was clear, if someone was talking over that person or whatever, this will help guide the content later on. And not always can the producer remember to tell the speaker to do that when they're producing the event. So, I've had 2 or 3 people in the room at most virtual events just for oversight and like a content manager sometimes, just to make sure that they're hitting all the points that were listed in the outline and the run of show. So.
Yeah. Any other major points to share on process before we wrap this one up?
Yeah, I think what kind of people should you hire to get this done?
Yeah.
So, like I said, when we're talking about people that are helping you on your team, specifically virtual assistants that are more innovative and creative in their process, because there's a virtual assistant that will just do what you say because you've already had that process in your head, or there'll be a virtual assistant that will know and understand your goals and create a process that works aligned with that. So knowing the difference between the two, I think, is important to whoever's on your team. And I say virtual assistant, but it could be a team member, it could be a marketing team, it could be anyone really that's in charge of doing the things after the fact and can wrangle your ideas into a post-event project, so to say.
Got it. Okay. Well, nobody was counting, but we're going to have to go through, and maybe that can be part of our event repurposing for this show on repurposing.
Yes.
Breaking this up, we'll break it up into 27 different pieces.
Okay. I like the 27, 21. I think it's just innovative ways to repurpose your event, why you should, and talk a little bit about the processes to do that. So if you are listening to our podcast and want to learn more about myself and John, go to rispod.live, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching Resilient Events, where co-hosts Marissa and John provide overwhelmed entrepreneurs with a comprehensive strategy for using podcasts, live streams, and events to establish expertise in any industry. With real-life examples and events expertise, they'll help you finish planning and start doing. only on the 100 TV network. Visit rizpod.live for show extras and freebies.